Welcome to F1 Blogs on YouTube. We're doing a deep dive today
Okay.
into this interview with Carlos Sainz,
Oh, cool.
the Spanish rally legend.
Right.
And, you're a big Formula One fan, so I figured
Yeah.
this would be right up your alley. He had some really interesting things to say about Lewis Hamilton.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Some that, we might even call a little bit controversial.
Yeah, I think what makes this interview so interesting is that Sainz is clearly like a huge admirer of Hamilton, but
Yeah.
he doesn't shy away from some of the more complex
Yeah.
aspects of his personality and his career.
Exactly.
So it's a really multifaceted perspective.
Yeah, like he kicks things off by talking about this video call that he had with Hamilton and Sebastian Loeb. And he's obviously like thrilled to be connecting with these two racing giants, especially Hamilton.
It's interesting because it shows us that even someone like Sainz, with his own incredible racing pedigree,
Yeah.
still gets starstruck by these guys.
Yeah.
And it really sets the stage for his genuine admiration for Hamilton.
Right.
It's not just lip service.
Yeah.
He clearly respects him immensely.
Totally. And he goes beyond just, Hamilton's skills on the track. He calls him special and talks about how he's lived through some tough things that have shaped who he is.
And that's where it gets really insightful, because Sainz isn't just saying that, Hamilton had a tough childhood. He's suggesting that those experiences actually fueled his drive to help others and shaped his values.
Right.
It goes beyond just talent
Right.
and gets into the core of who he is as a person.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's interesting how Sainz brings up Hamilton's focus on things like energy, motivation, spirituality.
Yeah.
Not exactly what you'd expect from a typical F1 driver.
Right. It really challenges that stereotype of the, partying daredevil racer.
Yeah.
Sainz is painting a picture of someone who's much more introspective and thoughtful than the public image might suggest.
Right.
And it makes you wonder how those things actually play into his racing and his activism.
I like that he backs this up with actual examples, too.
Yeah.
He mentions how Hamilton reached out to him personally when he was injured, showing a genuine concern for him.
That personal touch speaks volumes. It shows us that Sainz is speaking from a place of real experience with Hamilton, not just hearsay or media hype.
Speaking of media hype, Sainz doesn't shy away from the more controversial aspects of Hamilton's career either.
Right.
Like when he talks about Hamilton's advocacy for minorities in motorsports, he acknowledges that it's not always well received, emphasizes that it comes from a genuine place.
I think that's really important. Sainz isn't just praising Hamilton blindly. He's recognizing the complexities of his public image.
Right.
He gets that some people find Hamilton's activism too much, or maybe even off-putting.
Right.
But he's also making it clear that he sees the sincerity behind it.
He even goes into detail about Hamilton's Mission 44 Foundation,
Yeah.
which aims to support Black people, women, and other underrepresented groups in motorsports.
And that's where you see the real potential impact. We're not just talking about awareness campaigns or slogans here.
Right.
Mission 44 is putting real resources and support behind a group of people who have historically been excluded from the sport.
Yeah.
It's about tangible change.
Okay, now buckle up, because this is where things get really interesting. Sainz weighs in on the 2021 F1 season finale, the one where Hamilton lost the title to Max Verstappen
Oh, yeah.
in that controversial last race.
That's still a hot topic for a lot of F1 fans. I'm curious to hear what Sainz has to say about it.
He doesn't hold back, calls the final races dirty, and suggests that it was almost impossible for the officials to make fair calls and all that chaos.
That's a bold statement.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, is he just echoing the sentiments of a lot of Hamilton fans, or is there something more to it? Does he have any insider knowledge that's shaping his opinion?
Well, he does say that even with all the complexities, he believes Hamilton had reason to feel cheated.
That's significant because it shows where his sympathies lie.
Yeah.
He's not saying that Verstappen didn't deserve to win.
Right.
But he's acknowledging that the way it happened left a lot of people, including himself, feeling uneasy.
He even admits his heart was with Hamilton during all that controversy.
Yeah.
Which is pretty interesting considering he's also a Ferrari driver.
Right.
And Ferrari and Red Bull were the main contenders that season.
It shows the depth of his respect for Hamilton,
Yeah.
even when it might be seen as conflicting with his own team's interests.
Yeah.
And it reminds us that behind all the team rivalries and competition, there's still a level of personal respect and connection between the drivers.
All right, so before we move on to some of the lighter aspects of the interview, let's take a minute to digest this. What stands out to you so far about Sainz's perspective on Hamilton? What's resonating with you?
I think it's fascinating how Sainz manages to present this really nuanced view of Hamilton.
Yeah.
We see the admiration, the respect, but also the acknowledgement that, he's not universally loved. Yeah.
That there are valid criticisms out there.
Right. It's like he's saying, look, Hamilton is a complex figure, just like all of us. He's got his strengths and his weaknesses.
Yeah.
But that's what makes him so interesting.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And I think that's what made Sainz's perspective so valuable.
Yeah.
He's not trying to sugarcoat anything or present Hamilton as some flawless hero. He's giving us a more realistic, humanized portrayal.
He even jokes about how some people in Spain find Hamilton a bit much or too progressive.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
He's aware of the different perspectives on Hamilton,
Right.
particularly within his own country,
Yeah.
and he doesn't shy away from that.
He even brings up the rivalry between Hamilton and Fernando Alonso,
Yeah.
which is still a big deal for Spanish fans.
Ah, yes. That adds another layer to the conversation because it reminds us that Hamilton's public image has been shaped by these intense rivalries.
Right.
And that his reception can vary depending on who you ask. But what I find really interesting is that despite all the controversies and differing opinions, Sainz keeps coming back to the fact that Hamilton is using his platform to make a real difference, especially when it comes to diversity and inclusion in Formula One.
Absolutely. And that's a key takeaway from this whole interview.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you think of Hamilton's personality or driving style,
Right.
there's no denying that he's been a powerful voice for change in a sport that has historically lacked diversity.
Sainz even suggests that just by being himself, by being so visible and outspoken, Hamilton is helping to break down barriers and inspire future generations.
That's such a powerful point. It speaks to the importance of representation and the impact it can have.
Right.
Hamilton's presence in Formula One is sending a message that this sport is for everyone,
Yeah.
regardless of their background.
It's almost like he's a walking, talking example of how to challenge the status quo and use your influence for good, even if it means facing backlash or criticism.
Exactly. And I think that's a lesson that extends far beyond the world of Formula One. It's relevant to anyone who has a platform, no matter how big or small, and wants to use it to make a positive impact.
So what does this all mean? What can we learn from Sainz's unique perspective on Lewis Hamilton?
I think Sainz is offering us a glimpse into the human side of a sporting icon. He's showing us that even the most successful and celebrated figures are still just people with their own complexities, vulnerabilities, and contradictions.
Right.
And that it's okay to admire someone's achievements while also recognizing their flaws.
He's also highlighting the power of using one's platform for good,
Right.
even if it means facing criticism or controversy.
Absolutely. And I think it's a reminder that we shouldn't be afraid to speak up for what we believe in, even if it means going against the grain or challenging the status quo.
Okay, so before we wrap things up, let's take a step back and revisit Sainz's comments about the 2021 F1 Championship controversy. What are your thoughts on his assessment that Hamilton had reason to feel cheated?
It's a complex issue, and I think Sainz is right to point out that there were a lot of questionable decisions made during those final races.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that the way the championship ended left a sour taste in the mouths of many Hamilton fans.
But he also acknowledges that Verstappen drove brilliantly that season.
Yeah.
And the Red Bull was a very strong contender.
Right.
He doesn't take away from Verstappen's victory.
Exactly. He's not trying to rewrite history or diminish Verstappen's achievement. I think he's simply acknowledging that the circumstances surrounding that final race were highly unusual and that the decisions made by race control had a significant impact on the outcome.
It's interesting how he even jokes about wanting to be the head of the FIA to try to make things fairer. But then he admits it would be a tough job,
Right.
given how chaotic those final races were.
That's a great point. It highlights the incredible pressure that race officials are under, especially in those high-stakes moments.
Right.
And it reminds us that there's a human element to officiating and that mistakes can happen even at the highest level of motorsport.
It makes you think about the whole concept of fairness in sports. Is it even possible to achieve perfect fairness when there are so many variables and split-second decisions involved?
That's a really interesting question. And I think it's something that fans and officials continue to grapple with.
Right.
There's always going to be debate and disagreement, especially in those controversial moments.
Yeah.
But I think what's important is that we have these conversations and try to learn from them.
Okay, so before we move on to the final part of this deep dive, I want to hear from you, our viewers.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the 2021 F1 season finale? Do you agree with Sainz that Hamilton had reason to feel cheated? Let us know in the comments below. It's amazing how this whole interview gives us such a different perspective on Hamilton. It goes beyond just the headlines and race results.
It really does humanize him, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We see him as the fierce competitor, the outspoken activist, but also as a friend. Someone who's not immune to the ups and downs of social media.
Which brings us back to that hilarious anecdote about the Instagram message. It's such a small detail.
Yeah.
But it reveals so much about their relationship.
Yeah, I found that part so interesting. Sainz clearly doesn't take it too seriously.
Right.
Even though it seems like he genuinely thought he was blocked for a minute.
He seems to have a really good sense of humor about it all.
Yeah.
It speaks to his personality as well. Someone who can find the lighthearted side of things.
Right.
Even when it comes to a global superstar like Hamilton.
And that unexpected response from Hamilton at the very end, it's almost like a little bonus scene.
I know.
That adds another layer of intrigue to their dynamic.
It makes you wonder what their off-track interactions are really like. Are they actually friends?
Yeah.
Friendly rivals?
Right.
Do they chat regularly, or is it just the occasional message?
Right.
Scenes definitely leaves us wanting more.
It's a great reminder that there's often so much more going on beneath the surface, especially in the world of professional sports. We see these carefully curated public personas,
Right.
but there's a whole other dimension to these individuals and their relationships
Yeah.
that we rarely get a glimpse of.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's go back to that initial question.
Mm-hmm.
What does Sainz's perspective, both the praise and the potential controversial bits, reveal about Lewis Hamilton as a person and as a public figure?
I think Sainz paints a portrait of a man who's deeply committed to his values,
Yeah.
passionate about his sport, and determined to use his platform to make a positive impact on the world.
He's someone who's not afraid to be himself, even if it means facing criticism or ruffling some feathers.
Yeah.
He's polarizing, but in a way that sparks important conversations.
It's a great reminder that public figures are often far more complex than the headlines might suggest.
It's
They have
cool.
layers, contradictions, and
Yeah.
a whole lot going on behind the scenes.
And sometimes it's those little glimpses, like an offhand comment about a social media interaction,
Yeah.
that offer the most revealing insights.
Exactly. Those little moments of vulnerability or humor can be incredibly telling.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into Carlos Sainz's perspective on Lewis Hamilton. Thanks for joining us on this journey. What are your final takeaways?
Yeah.
What will you be pondering after hearing Sainz's thoughts? Let us know in the comments below.
And before you go, be sure to subscribe to F1 Blogs on YouTube for more deep dives into the world of motorsports. Until next time.